Right. Man, really appreciate you guys. We like doing these interviews, and the last few I did, actually, I don't even like calling them interviews. I like to call them conversations.
Right.
You know what? It kind of came by accident because the first time I did an interview with Flacco, my wife said I talk too much.
Really?
Yeah, she goes, I thought you were interviewing him and you're talking half the time. So I was like, well, you know what? We're going to call it conversations then. So, but I like it better because I don't know what it is, man. When, like, I've been interviewed a lot of times and I don't like it. I feel uncomfortable. It's not a comfortable feeling, and
Because of the line of questioning, or
it feels like the spotlight's on you compared to a conversation.
Right.
It's just two people talking.
right? Yeah, yeah.
So here I am with Toko. If you don't know who that is, I'm gonna give you a quick, brief summary of who. Is that okay if I do that?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So you were on what's the channel?
Stories written by a current prisoner.
Stories written. That's such a long name.
Yeah.
Stories written by a current prisoner.
Shout out to Tony too.
Yeah, Tony. Tony has an amazing channel. If you haven't subscribed to it, go ahead and subscribe to it. A lot of the guys call in from prison, right? They're in prison.
Yeah, I believe a lot of them are incarcerated, or a lot of them were recently out, like myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I did a story on there too.
Yeah. I finally got a chance to hear that, which was good. Shouts out to Flacco too for the interview from convict's perspective.
Yeah. Flacco
Rojo. Senor Rojo. Excuse me.
So, but your story, man, has captivated so many people that before we hit record, I told Toko, I said, I don't want you to reiterate the whole story because I want to talk about some other stuff. But man, that story is so compelling. You got to listen to it. I'll have a link to Tony's channel on your video on the description box and on the comments. I'll pin it, but basically, in summary, man, and please correct me if I make any mistakes, but Toko was involved in I don't know what you call it, a prison gang things. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because we're not here to say names. We're not here to do any of that stuff. But he was very deeply involved, and you'll get a better understanding of it when you hear that story on that channel. But that's not even the main focus. What I want to focus on is basically is that you were engaged.
I was engaged, yeah.
Yeah, you were engaged to a beautiful young lady, and some things happened where basically, I'm really got to summarize because then I want to tell the whole story, is I'll say this. He was called in the middle of the night to go and he heard screaming, and he actually went to that place. And somebody had drugged all the females there, including your fiance of the time, and she was brutalized and taken advantage of.
That is correct.
Right?
Yes.
And when you got there, the person that did it was there in the bathroom washing off or attempting to. And I'll really make the long story short. You broke his back.
That is correct.
And left him paralyzed.
Yes.
Now, most of people watching this, especially women, are like, that's justice, right? But you ended up doing 10 years for it.
Yep, 10 and a half years.
10 and a half years, guys. And again, I really summarize it. If you want to know the whole story, even if you want to pause here, hear that whole story and jump back in here because you'll get a better understanding of what we're talking about. It was so brutal of what happened to her. And man, I'm not even sure where to start here, man, because when I heard that story, I remember I heard it myself on headphones first. And I told my wife, I said, you got to hear this. And I kind of forwarded to the part where you got the call, and you heard, is it Regina?
Yeah, that was
screaming into the phone. I forwarded to that part, which was your fiance's sister.
Yes.
Right? Who was going out with, is he your best friend? One of your best friends?
He was my best friend. He was also involved with the same thing that I was involved with. He had a situation years earlier that, he was putting across, and he had to clear his name as being a youngster coming to prison. And of course, he was cleared, and he participated in the things that we participated in. And then I got to know him on a personal level.
Yeah. And
we really clicked, and we became friends after the first prison term, which was 7 years the first time around. And he's like the brother that I never had.
Wow.
And he ended up getting with my fiance's sister, like you mentioned, Regina.
So you're dating, what was her name?
Alicia.
You're dating Alicia. JoJo's your best friend, marrying Alicia's sister, Regina. So you guys
they were engaged. They got together. And they met, and anybody that knows JoJo knows that he's a character, and so that was when they met. It was almost instantaneous. That they got together because they kind of balanced each other out. But yeah. So there was our friendship.
Yeah. So that probably made So this horrible situation happens. Your friend JoJo was in Sacramento. What city did this happen at?
This happened in Santa Clara County.
Santa Clara County.
Yeah.
So this happens. You assault the guy. I imagine. I mean, I can't even imagine coming into a situation like that. I mean, even being a Christian man and a pastor, to come into a room and just to imagine my wife, I would have no words. Right. I can't sit here and say, I would be like, oh, I forgive you. You know what I mean? Like, it is what it is, and you did what you did. And what surprises me, honestly, and this is what I want to talk about a little bit, is the aftermath of that is, why did you get 10 and a half years for basically, I'll say it, doing what every man would probably do?
Well, in essence, I still broke the law. I took the law into my own hands. There's laws in place. I first want to give the disclaimer, just like I did. If you guys go check out the other channel, when I dropped the full story. Of course, there's a lot of stuff that I left out because of time constraints and because of certain people that are involved, that are still alive, that are no longer active gang members, and so on and so forth. They respect what I did, but they didn't want their names mentioned, and for obvious reasons. And it's not what this is about. This is about a story that I held on to, and that affected a good part of my life, both, on the streets and personally. My life and the way that I lived bled over into my personal life, which, it shouldn't have. And it really wasn't of anything that I was involved in per se. It was just people that knew each other from before. My fiance had a past with this individual that committed this heinous act, and not in a relationship romantically, but they grew up together and went to school. And the long of it was, he already had some things in question from being a teenager. That
on his character?
On his character, and on how he treated women, and the perversions or the sickness, whatever you want to call it. But nothing ever came about it. Of course, you're talking 30 years ago, where when you're kids, laws were different, and I've always, different time, different era, but it always was in the back of these girls' minds. And of course, when a man like that, or woman, and they have these psychological or whatever you want to call it. I don't have a PhD in any of that, and I don't pretend to understand. And another Christian brother told me a long time ago, you're never going to understand
Yeah.
why someone does the things that they do when on that level if it's not in your own heart.
It's a wickedness that the Bible talks about.
Right.
It says man's heart is utterly wicked, and yeah, that's another story, man.
Right.
But
So jealousy, the envy, and the fact that he couldn't have what he desired, and like most people, when they have an opportunity to do so, they'll do it. And unfortunately, on that night, and all those years ago, she ended up suffering the wrath of that, and I reacted. Of course, people will argue irrationally, but I did what any man would do in that situation. I did the best to, I wasn't able to protect her. I wasn't there.
As a man, that's what we're always the protector.
Exactly. And
especially for women and children.
Right. Yeah. And on that same token, I'm not a possessive or jealous man. If I'm, was engaged to this woman because I loved her and because she loved me, and there was a trust there.
Yeah.
We've known each other for 15 years, and it was just the last 5 years up until the day of the incident that we decided to get serious. And for those few years, we were getting our lives together. She was going to be a nurse, and she was celebrating all that. And like I said, I don't want to get off in a tangent with all that, but the aftermath of what had happened was, I zipped my mouth, and I took one on the chin, and I just ended up going into jail.
I have a question though. In I understand you broke the law. I understand, but like there's times where, for instance, a mother will kill a husband for molesting the kid. Mm-hmm. And yeah, she did a crime. Yeah, I get it. But it's brought up in court. Like, she did this because her child was being molested. Like, did that ever come into play, at least on your side or your lawyers? Or like, okay, he did a crime. Okay, we're guilty.
Right.
But, this is a crime of passion.
Right.
Did that come up? I'm just curious.
There was a couple of things that came up with my attorney. Of course, like I said, I didn't give a statement. I waited till I got a public defender, and then of course I told her everything that had happened.
Yeah. And
she just said, well, we could use this for our defense. This is going to be a separate case, and this guy's probably going to be done. And I just says, well, let me talk to Alicia. Mind you, this is a few months later. She came to see me in the county jail, and we talked. And she just become somebody else because of what happened, and
what was she like before this? Her personality, her character, and what was she like after this? Like immediately within, say, a few months.
Night and day.
Was she introvert, extrovert before?
She was both. She was extrovert when we were out. She was the life of the party. She just was very...
Loved to laugh? Or?
She loved to laugh. She, she listened to a lot of your, lot of your guys' music, and the laugh, the infamous laugh. Her and her girlfriends would, ha, 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 ha,
Would they?
Yeah. You know what I mean? On especially on the song Enter the Dark Room, because when you're talking about selling CDs and the laugh, all the other things, that... She just, she was just a very lighthearted extrovert.
Yeah.
But when it came time to matters of the heart, or she was the one out of the two of us to be like, hey, we, let's hang out this weekend. I don't want to be around anybody. We haven't had any us time, and then we would introvert sometimes for a couple of weeks and just do our own thing. And she'd grab my phone and she would turn it off. And
does she have hobbies?
She was a big fan of R&B music. Starting from the Temptations all the way up to like the oldies.
Yeah.
And
she collected.
And she was just, she was the type of individual that she'd hear a song, she'd find out who sung that song. Then she'd find out the year that it came out. Then she'd find their actual album. The songs that we'd find for oldies are off compilations. Then she'd be like, it's not just the notations. Don't just sing "I'm still here." They sing this, and
Yeah,
I
remember.
And there's different versions of it. Listen to this, like confessing a feeling. She found the actual, not the live version, but she found at a store somewhere in Sacramento. She found the actual full version. The original confessing the feeling is only 2 minutes. She found. As they would fade it out for the 45 singles, she found the full 5 or 6 minute version. I'm still, JoJo and I have been looking for some of that stuff for a long time. But that's how she was. Those were her hobbies.
Now, forward a couple months after, what was she like? What did you notice?
I noticed that she was just unsure of herself. She was trying to fight as much as she could. And, what really devastated her is you're a woman. I'm trying to put myself in her shoes, which I could never do. But I had to not sympathize and feel sorry. Something inside me told me just to empathize, put myself in her situation. Here's a woman who's going to be a nurse. She's engaged. We're getting ready to plan a wedding. And she's talking about we're starting a family together. And now that's all taken from you. And you have these other psychological issues now.
Which, another point, I know it's the other story, but you said she could no longer have children. That's how bad this brutalization was.
Right, yeah.
And she wanted a family.
Right, yeah. I don't know what happened, but I know there was some... It was just it was a brutalization. Is the best way I could say it, just out of respect. And I said, I don't want to get into the details and stuff like that, but that just tells you right there.
So that's a huge thing for a woman that wanted to have a family, wanted to have a future. It's one thing when a horrible thing happens, but here's the thing, when she can no longer have children, this isn't something she could leave behind. This is something she had to live with for the rest of her life.
Exactly.
Right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, I remember my wife was molested by her own biological dad. Her own dad. And she shows me pictures, man, where when she's little, she was happy, smiling, playing, and all of a sudden all the pictures changed. And she's just a sad, quiet little girl. And
it's terrible.
Man, and here's the thing though, is that because her and then this happened for a while until her mom caught. Her mom came home early from work and caught him trying to touch her. She saw it through the window, and she almost killed him. Almost pulled the knife and chased him. And it just whole family, fell apart. And I don't mean to talk more, but basically from that moment when the smile went away, all the way to the point that I met her. She would probably tell you that that smile never came back. She lost it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying her smiles are fake now, or I mean she's in the Lord and all that, but that robbed something of her. So I understand me not knowing Alicia, but when you say it was changed from months before to months after, I believe you.
Yeah.
That's never happened to me, and being a pastor, I hear it all the time of women, they share, they'll sit down with me and Sharon and they share what happened or this happened. It's tragedy.
And that's the thing that wasn't able to be covered in the other story because it's a different, it was part of my life story and my career and what I used to be and what I participated in. That part of it was the reason, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back to me to change my ways. Of course, years later, but it just, she came to see me, going back to that, and she just said, I told her actually that, my lawyer said, what happened could be a defense, for me. And she just said, but she's like, babe, we gotta be careful because if you do this and you flip, or I said, what? I'm not flipping. I'm just gonna say why, why I did what I did, the reasons why, and
because of the politics behind it.
Exactly.
So, I see. So
she knew already.
Yeah.
And the look on her face, she just says, I'll be forever grateful and I love you, but there's a possibility that they'll kill me, and then God knows what they'll do to you. So
so in case the person that's watching don't understand, why didn't he go that route? You got to understand that he was in a very tight-knit, organized crime. group, and this person was somewhat affiliated, so that caused political
moneymaker, yeah.
That he was a moneymaker for the group, so that created political issues. So you couldn't go and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna defend myself, because then it looks like
A form of telling.
yeah,
you know,
okay,
and-
okay. That way they could understand,
Right.
you know,
Yeah. So
which would put your life in jeopardy and
right,
hers.
Right. Yeah. And all that happening to her, it tells you what kind of character that she had. She was more worried about my safety and
Wow.
not, let everything happen. And of course, there was DNA evidence, and there were things, but because of what I did to him, he was going to be in recovery and in the hospital for a long time. And
You didn't know you broke his back at the moment.
I didn't know. I had to find
Well,
out.
you probably didn't care.
I didn't care,
Yeah.
it didn't matter. But I knew I hurt him really bad. But like I talked to you off camera about this, I pulled something pulled me away,
Yeah.
People could say what they want, the comments, people say things, and for the most part, a lot of you have been very supportive of it, but people always comment about what they would do, and I respect it. Everybody's entitled
Yeah.
to their opinion, but unless you're in that situation, unless it's your daughter, it's your wife, it's your sister, whoever, they call you and you hear something like that, either two things are going to happen. You're going to react or you're not going to react.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I'm, the baddest guy in the world. Anybody that knows me knows that I've always moved in silence. I don't talk about the things that I used to do, because all those things, and that's just another story for another time, those affected me as well.
Yeah.
Because, it's not like Hollywood, not only do they not give a good depiction on gang, brown people, Hispanic, whatever it is,
Yeah.
but it's just a constant mockery and stuff, and it's just not true. It's not true. It's somebody's vision, and it's just a sell, and I'll leave it at that. And what had happened, was just truly just horrific. And like I said, if I could do it all over again, I don't think, no matter if I had the heart that I have now or then, I probably would have still done the same thing, because you don't get to do that to somebody that I love
Exactly.
without suffering some sort of repercussions. Do
Man.
I feel bad over it? Could I handle it different? Like I said in my story, the only way that part affected me is when, like I said in the story, she told me, all these things that she was going through, the counseling and the grief counseling and the stuff that women who are attacked, in those weirdo and sick type ways, what they have to go through to try to heal themselves. Me being incarcerated, she never told me this our whole life, but she told me, she goes, I just wished you would have let the law handle it instead of you. Instead of me, because I really need you by my side right now.
Wow. So this thing happens. You get arrested for it. Mm-hmm. You're sitting in a jail cell, and she's going through this without you.
Yeah.
And how long did they sentence you pretty quick? Or how long did it take to actually get sentenced?
Of course, they go in by my record, and
you couldn't bail out?
No, my bail was. Unfortunately, the bail was pretty high.
Yeah.
And then we could have done it, probably put the house up that we were in, but I didn't. There were other things that were going on, behind the walls and stuff. The politics, like you talked about, I was trying to figure some things out and get some clarification on why things were going the way that they were going. But getting back to that part of it, it was probably about another 8 or 9 months later. I mean, because I was looking at 20 to life.
Wow.
And they put all these different charges on there, and then once, that's the way they do it. They throw a bunch of charges on the wall and
see what sticks.
See what sticks. You know what I mean? And fortunately for me,
was the biggest part of the prosecutor was the fact that you left him paralyzed?
That was part of it, because of one of the charges that's mayhem.
Yeah.
And
because that's beyond battery.
That's beyond battery. Yeah, it's beyond the 415, which is assault with great bodily injury, which is a felony. You know, like somebody, you know, you're breaking somebody's jaw or they hit themselves or whatever. And, you know, so there was just a lot of factors into that. But then probably about 2 weeks after that, I was incarcerated for this. You know, my good friend, you know, Jojo, that, I talked about.
Your best friend.
My best friend. Somebody else that was involved that was trying to help cover up what happened that night. He ran into this guy in the street. They got into it.
Well, somebody was standing guard at the door while this was happening to you.
Yeah, he wasn't actually standing guard. He caught them. He caught the individual taking Alicia to the room and just said, "Hey, homie, you know what? Don't let anybody use the bathroom in here. Just kind of make sure." He goes, "I'm gonna make sure she's okay and stuff like that. But I'm gonna lock this door so if anybody comes, you know, they're trying to get away." Which later on, you know, in his statements, he knew it was wrong.
Oh, really?
And but he was gonna back up his friend. But once he found out everything else, of course, he backpedaled. But still, when all the court transcripts and everything came forward, people tried to get in there, but he did keep them away. So Jojo zeroed in on this guy, and
so Jojo went to prison too.
And Jojo ended up getting locked up, and then we were both there in the county.
But he was in Sacramento.
He was
when this happened.
He was in Sacramento, and when this happened, he came down to my aid. Unbeknownst to myself at the time.
That's a good 2-hour drive, right?
Yeah, it's a good 2-hour drive. He came in his work truck, you know, the company name and everything else. And Regina had to calm him down and tell him, you know, hey, this is what's going on. And last time I'd seen him, I was at the hospital, and he had told me, you better get out of here because the police and stuff like that are going to come.
We were at the hospital with Alicia.
Yeah.
So Jojo, not only did he love you as a friend, he loved Regina. And he loved Alicia.
Yeah.
The three people he loved.
Yeah, exactly.
And seeing you hurt and them hurts him.
Yeah.
And of course, being from the streets, we're gonna react the way we're gonna react.
Right.
That's just kind of the street code.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you're in jail, you get sentenced to 10 years, whatever.
I took they offered me, this is the best that's going to happen. You know, you get your second strike, you go back, and they tried to do a Romero, but because it was violence, it was denied, and I got the second strike. I got 10 and a half years. And then Jojo ended up getting 9.5. And again, the biggest misconception, they're all 3 separate cases. What I did to the individual, what the individual did to Alicia.
That's another case.
And then Jojo, what he did to the individual's friend later on down the line. So it's 3 separate cases.
How much time did Jojo get?
He got 9.5.
That was close to what you had. Almost.
Yeah, he got 9.5 on 80%. And
wow. All right, guys, we're back. Sorry, apologies. We had air-conditioned people. The air condition upstairs went out, and come to find out, one of the air conditions guy just a year ago got out after doing 27 years after a 187, which is a murder. And so we were just out talking to him really quick, and man, you know, we exchanged numbers because he's like, my wife told him that what we were doing was back actually giving the testimony, and might be, you guys might see him, you know.
Yeah.
I could like to hear a story because he's a believer. After 27 years in state, he gave his life over to the Lord. That's all I know. I don't know anything else, but I will be getting a hold of him. So we're back here, and I'm not sure exactly where we left off. I think we're talking about the 10 and a half year sentence you got. What was that like for you, man? What was that like for you? Her, after she went through that and her character changed, her personality changed, that must have been anguish. Being, you basically had your hands tied.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing that a lot of people don't talk about is, well, for good reason, there's nobody to talk to it about too, and who's going to listen, right?
They're listening.
And they're listening. But you know, no one comes over and says, you know, hey, how you feeling? Or, you don't get any of that. You just kind of, like I said, that's, you know, the biggest thing is I just took it on the chin. You know what I mean? I never made no qualms about it. I wasn't trying to get out of anything.
But what did that feel like inside, man? Inside in who you are? What did that do to you?
I put myself in Alicia's shoes, and I just, I knew, here we go, 10 calendars before I was going to see the light of day. And that was probably the hardest thing there. And it just, I knew that something was going to have to change, something was going to give. But I think for the first time in my life, the fear of the unknown really set in. I mean, I knew where I was going, I knew where I was heading, but I didn't know where I was going to end up.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how life was going to be, that aftermath that a lot of stories and people are left to speculate about what happens. This is what we're talking about today, is the aftermath. Once the judge hits the gavel, on the bench, you're no longer part of society. You're part of your state property, and you go where they tell you to go. And of course, things that I was involved in, there was no wiggle room with that. There was bigger forces at work, and which is not important to the narrative of the story, is that I went through a lot of trials and tribulations. I was focused as much as I could be on my relationship, and I had to watch this woman who got me to fall in love with her, showed me what love really was, because our relationship was up and down, up and down. I was no saint, neither was she, and that's not a knock. That's just anybody that's had an up and down relationship with a childhood sweetheart. You're gonna grow apart, and if you're lucky, you grow back together. And we did. We got a lot of stuff out of our systems, and like I said, I was no saint. She dated other people, and so did I. I had other kids from other women, and she accepted that. And her biggest thing, she was a real woman in my eyes, is because she was able to separate and put things in their box neatly where they needed to be. And she's like, I don't care about all that. What I care about is if we commit to each other, then that's it. And we did. And all that stuff ran through my mind, is how
over and over
is just how 1 minute everybody's smiling, to the snap of a finger everybody's crying, and lives. And it just didn't affect my life. It affected JoJo's life. It affected Regina's life. They were already...
And her family.
And her family, her parents, of course, they separated and stuff like that. And then she had other brothers and sisters that, that aftershock or that aftermath, when you're victimized, or when you're doing the victimizing, you don't think about the things and the situations. Now, the last thing I'm going to do is sit here and cry about my sins and the things that I participated in. I was a full, willing participant in the things that I was involved in. I knew what I got myself into. That's why taking time on the chin, once you're caught, you're caught. You just got to do the time because you did the crime. But this time, there were victims on both sides, and justly so. What I did was because somebody that I loved was victimized. And then the victim, the perpetrator, for what I did to him, it was a contradictory in terms. I'm sure to the district attorney's office and everybody law enforcement wise, because later on I'd found out through my lawyer that a lot of the police that investigated felt like, man, I have a daughter, I'm married, or I can't, or if it was a female police officer, she's
or has
like
a sister.
Yeah, that's where the term, this guy's the hero. And I don't, a lot of people feel that way, and
it's funny, because that's what I was going to say right now, is many people listening to this are going to consider you a hero.
Yeah.
I know you don't see it that way, but
I'm a very, very humble guy. I don't brag or boast. All my word is all that I have.
Yeah.
I keep it. If I say I'm going to be somewhere, I do my best to be there. And my whole thing now, after all of that happened, the 10 calendars behind the wall, and then laws changed, and I was able to get out just before the 10, and thankfully so, because several months later then COVID happened. So, and then JoJo got out before I did, but I took that time to reflect, and then I'll share about the story about the corrections officer. I remember when my life was coming full circle again, probably about 4 years into it, when when I made a decision to walk away, so to speak, and and there were certain things that I had to do. I was in my mind conflicted with, I still had about 4.5, 5 years left at the time when all this was going on. And I remember being in the hole and in administrative segregation, the 23-and-1, and I was in the shoe. And I just remember the things that would go on in there. It was a different time. I hadn't been to prison, mind you, in several years.
So you were out. There was a big gap.
It was a big gap. I got out the first time in 2001. I went back on a violation, 2002, turned that into 9 months after a situation happened and catching more time. And then after that, I went back on another violation in 2006, and I did a full year on that. And I had a DA referral on that one, and I ended up turning a 6-month violation into a year violation. The district attorney didn't pick it up, and by that time I had I was in the hole, and I was looking at an indeterminate shoe, but I ended up going home. And when I went home, I ended up discharging off of parole that following year. So I was off parole probably for about 3 or 4 years, and
this is before all this happened.
This is before all this happened. This happened in the end of 2008, early 2009. And by the time I ended up in the state prison, when it was all said and done, it was almost, I think it was January of 11. But they gave me the credit and so on and so forth. So, but when I sat in the hole, and some of the other fellas and some of the other homies, they all knew why I was there.
Yeah.
And they knew the problems politically wise, according to prison politics, what it caused me, the grief and everything else. And I was just tired. I was tired. I felt betrayed. I felt used. I felt abused. I felt that, I prided myself on giving people their due process and hearing people out, not jumping to conclusion. Anybody that's been involved in the lifestyle that I was involved in knows you're taught a certain way. You're taught how to not let your emotions get the best of you, and because it can cloud your judgment. And I just felt, and I knew that I wasn't getting that. Yeah. There were people that supported me, but nobody wanted to go against the bigger picture. And when my integrity and my career, so to speak, in that lifestyle was questioned, I wasn't going to be victimized. Yeah. And so I moved swiftly and resorted to violence. And
this is in prison.
This was in prison. And that's when, I made my decision to go to the other side, and live. And I never forget, I had been in the hole probably about 3 months. And they're trying to figure out what to do with me. And one correction officer, they're privy to your C file and they know what you're there. And he just says, listen, man, he goes, I respect who you are. And I see how you do things on the tier, and you don't give any trouble and stuff. But then I seen your C file, and I know why you're so quiet. You conduct and you carry yourself a certain way. And I just says, I appreciate that, but what are you trying to ask me? He's like, I know why you're in here, man. And he's like, you see this scar on the back of my head? And I looked at it, and I says, yeah. He goes, I was once an arrogant and ignorant corrections officer. And I was young, and I thought that I was, a badass, and I got put in my place. And I was humbled. But
humble pie don't taste good.
No. And I forget, one of the female guards, I asked her one time during a transport what the stripes meant on her. I think they signify 3 years apiece, or
I don't know,
or 5 years, something like that. So he had like 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah.
And he says, I'm not a lieutenant. He goes, this just means
Wow.
I have a certain amount. He had over 20 years in. And he's like, look, he goes, I know why you're here. And I know what happened to your girlfriend and your fiance.
Wow.
He goes, it's tragic. He goes, but the one thing I can tell you is, you know, God's never left you.
What did you think when you heard that?
And if you don't know God, he goes, you know, I would suggest that you get to know him.
Wow.
Because he's by your side. Everything you're going through right now, taking you to this shower, being in the transition from you know, becoming your own man. He goes,
Because he let you come out to take a shower, which, guys, when you're in the hole, that's a big deal, right?
Yeah,
it's a really big deal.
Yeah. You're
So
supposed to get it every day, but it don't always work that way.
Yeah.
You'll be lucky if you get a shower, you know.
So real quick, I do want to say this, guys. How many times have I preached that the walls of prison cannot stop the message of God? You know, there's no wall, there's no prison, there's no solitary that can keep Jesus out of it. So I just want to throw that in there.
Yeah.
So he will use a correctional officer to reach those that he loves. So anyways.
I don't want to mention his name because I don't know if he's retired or not,
Yeah.
or put his business out on Front Street. But I thought that was really, you know, I've never had any issues with any correction. It's always been, like I said, when you're living a certain lifestyle, it's always business. But that particular, where he kind of went out of his way to let me know, like, you know, hey, you got a raw deal.
Yeah.
But, you know,
Some COs don't have to do that.
they don't have to do that, you know. But they do recognize. I'll say this much:
Yeah.
they recognize someone that doesn't give them problems,
Exactly.
and they recognize someone who stands his ground.
Yeah.
And like I said, I wasn't the biggest, I wasn't the baddest, but you weren't going to move me, and you weren't going to put me in a situation, and I didn't participate in the riffraff games and the hollering and the shouting. I didn't do that. Like I said, I moved in silence. And I had a lot of things going on in my mind, and God was the furthest thing from it, because, you know, I just felt that, where was he at when this was happening? How could he let this? You know, I went through all that
Yeah.
stuff.
If there's a God, why did this happen to her? Why didn't he intervene?
Right.
So either he don't exist or he don't care.
Right.
That's what the conclusion most people come down to, right?
Exactly.
So all of a sudden you got the CO saying God never left you.
Yeah. And
Did you roll your eyes?
no, because that's the other thing.
Yeah.
Even though I was what I was, I still had a line that I wouldn't cross. I never was
reverence.
blasphemous. I never was, you know, all, you know, cursing or doing all that other stuff. Yeah, you know, I mean, I'm like any other man. I've used the Lord's name in vain, jokingly and stuff like that. But to sit,
But you respected and reverence to God.
yeah, exactly. But to sit there and curse and you know, and turn into some vampire because I turned my back. No, you know, like in the movies, right? The dramatic. I renounce, and then
The Bram Stokers?
yeah. You know, it's you know, I'm making light of the situation, but you know,
I know exactly what scene you're talking about.
exactly, because that's you know, it's funny because why he became Dracula, according to Bram Stoker, was because he was betrayed by.
It's actually one of my
the
favorite
church.
books.
Yeah.
That's
You
an
know what
old
I mean?
school book, man. It was written a long time ago.
Exactly, you know, and Gary Oldman did a really good
Yeah, he
part,
did.
you know, where they spoke in the old language and
Yeah,
stuff, and
yeah.
that's my favorite, you know, horror love story that there ever
Right?
was.
I don't even like horror movies, but I like that movie.
Yeah.
So anyways, we're sidetracking because
Yeah,
you're a
exactly.
movie guy. That is 10% of my movies. That
Exactly.
thing is racks full of DVDs. So I'm a movie guy too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's another video, guys. But
it's another video for another time, you know.
so let me say
no
this.
longer in the dark room, we're in the light room. You know what I mean?
So he started talking to you about the Lord multiple times?
No, just that one time.
Oh, that one time.
And to answer your question, I didn't roll my eyes. I looked up at him like I'm looking at you, and I said, you know, I appreciate that.
Wow.
And he kind of, you know, put his hand on my shoulder and kind of tapped and be like, I'll be back in a few minutes.
Wow.
You know, I just wanted to tell you that.
But that show of kindness, guys, it means everything. And here's a point you're not bringing up that I'm going to bring up, is that when you're in solitary, you're treated as you're made to feel like an animal, because even when a nurse comes to see you, they have you go backwards, put your hands out of the slot, they cuff you up. At least that's how I got dealt with, you know what I mean? And where I was at. And basically, you're just a number. You're just a number. If anything, you're maybe a last name, never first name. Did he ever? Is this the officer that called you by name, or no? That's somebody else.
No, yeah, he was. He called me by name. He called me by my name.
Because that's a big deal. At least for me, being incarcerated in solitary, that's like it makes you feel human.
Yeah. And not only that, but when the officers that work back there, you know, I get a different respect for them, you know, and I don't care what anybody says. I'm a different man now, and they're human beings too. Yeah. It takes a special kind of SEAL to work back there because you're around everything, but you also don't have the movement, so they get a chance to see who's on their tiers, what kind of people they have, and they treat you accordingly. And you know, I was always lucky, whether they were female or male officers, young or old. All the yards and things that I've been on, even when I was inactive towards the tail end of my sentence, it's all about respect. Yeah, it's all about
everything's on respect. Yeah, that's all you got.
Yeah, exactly. But just like those individuals, there's some that just they hunger for the power. But for me, it just kind of showed, you know, someone took an interest, and then later on, it was because of the situation that had happened. Here I am, you know, having to pay the ultimate price, and my life was turned upside down. But yet, I'm getting these little lugs about. Yeah, I'm going in the right direction. Yeah. I'm doing things that are going to benefit me later on, and you know, probably the best thing that happened was, you know, fast forwarding to probably about a year and a half before I was going to go home. JoJo ends up rolling up, and we hadn't done time together for about 15 years on the same.
He hit where you were at.
He hit where I was at. And
so that's right before he released.
Yeah, that was right before he got released. Wow. Because there was a lot of guilt that I carried over his situation because what he did for me. And what a lot of people don't know is that I think I talked about this on the live when I was in Texas with Flaco and Rojo, is that you know, Regina and him really had a falling out because she wanted him to renounce everything. Wow. And we're going to get married and stuff. And he just kind of, anybody that knows JoJo is just like, you got to go, you got to do what you got to do, girl.
I got to meet this JoJo.
Yeah. You know, he watches this stuff and he'll see it, you know.
JoJo, what's up, man? Yeah. We got to have a burrito or something.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean?
So I want to know what happened to Alicia and at when? Where were you at? What happened?
We had kept in touch throughout, but that's when I found out, probably about 3 or 4 years into it, that her drug addiction, that I didn't even know that she started turning to substances, drinking and stuff, and
which is perpetuated by what she went through.
Right, you know, and we had, last time I had talked to her on the phone was when I had made it down to Tehachapi, and I called her and we got to talk a couple of times. She was actually there because got close with Regina just to keep in touch with the family, because I didn't have too much family of my own. We weren't close. And that was my contact to the outside world. Yeah. She was there and she cried, you know, it was an emotional. She's like, "You're okay?" I said, "Yeah, I'm fine. You know, just a few more years. How you doing? You know, what's been going on?" And
that problem, I didn't think of this till now. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I feel like that weighed, even besides what happened to her, the fact that you were doing time for what happened to her, that had to have weighed on her, whether you realize that or not.
I tried to, you know, she tried to always tell me, God, it's been so long ago, you know, a lot of that stuff. And that's the other point, is when you're in solitary and when you're locked up, you know, I know we joke about it, but you become heartless, and not in the sense where you're callous.
No, I know what you mean.
And no forethought for anybody else, but you just, like I shared this with you before, David, there would be times where I wanted to cry. There'd be time, and I would just be so exhausted that I would feel it come up, and then something is on its own. Yeah. I can't explain what it is. It goes away. Yeah. You know, and you know, and talking to someone afterwards, you condition yourself so much to when you can do that, you know, with your feelings and just like it's like
Which that in itself is a part of incarceration. It's part of what do they call it? Institutionalization.
Institutionalization.
Because we're human. We're made to have emotion. We're made to have feeling. We are made, you know what I mean? God, put it this way. To me, the most manly person to ever exist was Jesus.
Right.
And there's a Bible verse that said Jesus wept. That doesn't mean he had a couple tears. He wept. That means he mourned, you know what I mean? With
Right.
passion. So anyways, yeah, it's a form of institutionalization that you couldn't cry.
Right. And it's the same properties or perpetual stuff that goes on in your brain when you're learning a new language.
Yeah.
When you memorize certain things and you can translate English to Spanish or to Tongan or Samoan or Cantonese or whatever. And to the naked ear, for lack of a better term, or someone doesn't understand, it's like, how can you talk so perfect English and then you can talk this other language? Well, it takes repetition.
Yeah.
So the same things that go on in the human brain or the body or the soul, however you want to use it, is the same things that cause me to, okay, you recognize this, but something inside of you suppresses that to protect your blood pressure, you're having a stroke, whatever it is, you know, and those are the things that nobody talks about, you know, because, you know, I'm single. I've been that way since I've been home the last 2 years. I've thrown myself into my kids' work and getting myself and being self-sufficient. And
so what happened to her? That's what we got back.
oh yeah, I forgot about that. You could edit that.
And when did it happen? Were you inside or outside, and what happened to her? In case they don't know.
So we had a conversation about 1.5 years before I came home, and we wanted to get back together, but she just felt, and this is the deepest that her and I have ever talked about what had happened to her years earlier. She just felt that she wants to, she misses me, she longs for me, the physical touch and everything else that makes a man and a woman be together. But she knew it in her heart that I wouldn't judge, but her mind was telling her that she was less than, I wasn't going to love her because she was dirty, because of what had happened.
And that guy, that's a lie of the devil. That is a lie of the devil, because the enemy always wants to tear you down. And he will make you believe something about yourself so you can never rise to what God called you for. Yeah. You know, so, yeah, man, that's, my wife tells me the same stuff. That women, man, when something happens to them, they feel less than. They feel less than a woman. They feel less than, or they see no worth in themselves.
Right.
You know, and so you guys had this deep conversation. Mm-hmm. Is that the last conversation?
That was the last conversation, and then she was going to go into rehab. And then when I was able to use the phone again, because we went on.
So she wanted to clean up.
She wanted to clean up. And so, you know, long story short, she obviously it didn't happen. I came home, and she was out there, you know, ripping and running, doing what she was doing. She had been estranged from the family, and she hadn't been in contact in over 1 year. And then I think one of her sisters said she was down in Los Angeles area and stuff. And then I had to, you know, worry about parole and getting my life together. You know, like I said, the part that is not attractive or people that don't want to hear, but, you know, you're basically, once you're done, you walk out that door and you're expected to be a productive member of society.
Yeah.
You know, so I took advantage of every program that I could to help me get on my feet and be successful. And then I ended up transferring the parole out of state, you know, and moving. So that's where I've been, you know, outside the continental U.S. in Hawaii the last couple of years. And,
but you're Hawaiian, right? You're not even Latino.
Yeah, no. I mean, there's my great-great-grandfather was Mexican. So, you know.
So what language do you speak?
So there's when I was younger, I spoke Tongan, and then when I learned Samoan.
Like fluently, English. Or just a few words here and there?
Now, yeah, it's just a few words here and there, you know, because I wasn't raised. When I was younger, when we lived in Hawaii.
So do you understand it more than you can speak it?
Yeah.
That's how I am with Spanish.
Yeah, I understand it more than I can.
I speak very broken, but I understand probably 90%.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, like I said, when we came here, we lived in a very diverse neighborhood. You know, we were the only islanders that were there, so I was embraced by La Raza, and that's where I chose to hang my hat. You know, and I've been living that way ever since. You know what I mean? I really identify with everything.
Yeah.
You know, my body's marked with all kinds of different Aztec stuff. You know, of course, with the meanings behind them and things, and
So you talked to her the last time you got out. She was in LA somewhere, estranged from the family.
She was estranged from the family, and that's when I heard the pandemic had hit. So you know you're at home and you check out YouTube. You want to occupy your time, and then I seen Paradigm News Media first, and Boxer's channel, and I had heard about his book, which was considered contraband on the inside because it was gang related, not because of whatever. So then you heard all it's a good book and it's really detailed. So he was narrating it.
Yeah.
So I bought the book, and
he did a great job. Actually,
he did
amazing job.
He's an amazing.
I don't know him, but I remember going to the channel. Somebody had told me about it, and I'm like, wow, this guy's a natural born narrator.
Exactly, and it's his life story. So it puts you. It's like you're walking over his shoulder.
But even now, he reads other people's books, and it sounds amazing.
Exactly,
he makes their books sound better.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and so that's what I I got into all this YouTube stuff. And then Flaco and Rojo had started the channel after hearing their stories, and as well as Gunner and all that. And I just started, there was some stuff that Flaco was talking about that I could relate to. And, and he'd have his lives and we would have conversations. And then...
and you still didn't know about Alicia?
I still didn't know about it. And then I had shared with Flaco, and then we actually talked on the phone. And I knew about his situation, what happened with his first wife. It was kind of one and the same, And
it's very similar.
Very similar. And then he was very up there, in the things that...
in the organization.
In the organization. And for that to happen to him. So we related, and we became friends, and...
He's a good brother.
He is. He's a really good brother, and I don't put that lightly, man. He really does push the unity, and he really does push positivity, and he wants to see people succeed, if for no other reasons, how he gives back. For all the years that he lived a different way.
And a lot of people don't say it, but I'm gonna say it is that because of Flaco, many people's channels have flourished.
Exactly.
And whether
many
it's
of us have relationships now outside of that.
I mean, I already had my channel for 10 years, but talking to him and him helping let people know about my channel has helped it grow, including other people's channels that some of them are surpassing his channel, but they can never take away the fact that Flaco was one behind it. Helping and pushing and encouraging and saying you can do this. And he sat with me with the YouTube. He's like, did you know you can check the analytics? Did you know you can do this? Man, he breaks it down. So anyway, so back to Alicia.
So I ended up doing the story a couple of months ago, right before summertime, and I wanted to reach out to JoJo and some of the family before I did that because, I had told Flaco, listen, I'll talk about it, but, I got to get some clearance about using some of the names because we're telling my story.
Out of respect?
Yeah, out of respect, because there's a couple people in my story that, I don't know where they're at this time, and then her family. And he's like, absolutely. So when I did it, we did it in 2 or 3 parts, which was edited into two separate episodes. I found out Regina had reached out to me after about a week. And that's
Alicia's sister.
And then she had told me that she goes, we didn't know how to get a hold of you. You don't have any social media. She goes, but, we lost Alicia a year ago, so the pandemic had happened. And then a couple months later, they had found her in LA. She was deceased, and it was from an overdose.
So you were out already?
I was out already. I was out a few months already, but I didn't find out till well over a year afterwards. But all that, her death brought all of us together and brought Jojo and Regina, were able to mend some fences, and they're actually spending time together as we speak. They have been. There was a lot of things that were in between all of us that it's hearsay, and and you have too many people, it spoils the soup. Too many hands in the soup spoils it. You know what I mean? And
well,
it was just
so there's a reunion -1.
There's a reunion -1, and
yeah.
The one thing I think I told you when you and I met, and I'll share this with the audience, is that I've been so focused on everybody else's happiness, my kids, and really just trying to focus on what I was before, turning all that negative into something positive. Now, this is not everybody has their own freedom of choice. I'm not here to badmouth anything. My life is I am just who I am now as a man. And if I can give back and help another man or another woman, be afforded the opportunities that I was given to turn things around, I'll do that. But this is in no way, shape, or form, a poor me. This is just a very real thing that happened to me.
Yeah.
And obviously, in the comments, you talked about this, their channels, this happens a lot more than we know.
Yeah.
It does. And it gets swept under the rug because it's not, it's not fancy. It's not guys wearing blue or guys wearing red or drugs, or this is stuff that, gets down into the soul, because, all of us have kids, or we have a sister, or we have a brother, and no one wants to hear about things like that. And it can be very, very, very difficult, and the best thing that I did was bring this story to the forefront. If nothing else, anybody that knows me knows I'm a very humble guy that stays back, but I believe in what Pastor David is doing and everybody else that's involved, and I want to be involved in that, because when you take for so many years and you have the loss that I've had, there has to be some light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm in a very good place. And Regina had told me during the fight, she kind of grabbed my face like her sister used to do, and she just says, you need to move on, and you need to be happy. You deserve to be happy like me and your boy. She pointed to Crazy Jojo, and she's like, we're getting a second chance, and my sister would want you to be happy. She goes, it does no good for a guy like you, with the heart that you have and the respect that you have for women, to stay somewhere in a chair and isolate yourself.
And respect for women is something that is unfortunately extinct sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever noticed. Did you ever notice I never disrespected women in my songs?
That was one of the reasons why all the women in my life love this guy. You know what I mean? The guitar riffed, but the fact that he never, I
didn't cuss.
He didn't cuss. He had that unique voice, and when he was angry, and when he did make songs about stuff that he was angry about, he still didn't swear.
The women thing, man. My mom, my grandma, my aunts were the hub of the family.
Yeah.
So all the women in my family were very highly respected. So I didn't have the mindset to, I'm just like, I can't make a song disrespecting women. What if my tia hears this? You know what I mean? Or at the time, I only had a daughter in the beginning. Like, she's going to grow up someday. I don't ever want to be like, not be able to show her my music, and it's like, so, kind of coming to maybe the last 10 minutes or so, I do want to say and reiterate what I told you even before when we had lunch, man, is that not only you said something right now, you said that Regina said that her sister would have wanted you to be happy. I'll go even deeper, man, is that the Lord wants you to be happy. The Lord wants you to flourish. The Lord, it's like all this stuff you went through, if there's no God, then what's it for? You know what I mean? But if there is a God, then He has a purpose for each of us. Everything I went through, everything, I remember having a conversation with Gunnar in the interview, and I told him, I'm like, I asked him, would you ever change anything? And he said, no. And I said, I agree. Because if I would have changed something in my past, it would have changed who I am today.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we are friends. I'm glad that we have communication. I'm glad that I can learn off of you, and you can learn from me. I'm glad you showed up to Sunday service.
Yeah.
That was
That was awesome.
That was a huge blessing just to know you were there. And I did not shape that sermon because you were coming. That's what I was going to preach. A lot of times people come, you made that for me, huh? I was like, dude, I'm just going to be led by God, and I'm just going to say what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
If it fits, then that was God talking to you, But, I like the direction that you're going, that you are associating yourself with people that are not only positive, but are leaning to the Lord, because I know that even Flaco, Flaco is a Christian. He goes, man, I mess up and this and that. But here's the thing, right? He connects himself to me, and the best thing I can do is be a living example to him.
Right.
I'm not perfect, but I follow the one that's perfect.
Yeah.
And even the Apostle Paul says, he was, in the way I follow Christ, follow me. And so that's a heavy weight, for me to, that's why a lot of people that stand behind the pulpit, they think it's just about preaching. No, man, the preaching is the least part. It's the living example you set that's the most important part.
Right.
Because somebody can preach amazing, but if your life is different, then what is that? You got to reflect the life you live. You got to reflect the preachings or the teachings that you do. And just the fact that you're sitting here with me, the fact that this is a Christian channel, the fact that this is reaching people, and I hope and I pray and I know that it's leading you in a direction closer and closer to the Lord. I'm not saying you're far from the Lord,
Right.
but I know that something good is coming from this. There's healing that needs to take place. There's healing that is taking place. Actually, I feel like you did this. You did the interview on Tony's channel, and then finding out about Alicia, and now with JoJo and Regina, us meeting, you meeting Flaco, us right here, right now. It's a build-up to something.
Yeah.
Would you agree to that? Or?
Yeah, I do. I really do. I feel that for the first time in a long time, I'm not on my track. I'm on a spiritual track. Where that's going to lead, I have no idea, but I'm not in the driver's seat. I'm just here, and I vowed that I was going to put myself around people that were going to uplift me, and one hand washes the other. I was going to be able to do the same and be there for them, regardless of what form or fashion that was in. I really, really, really meant what I had said to myself. That's the thing. I didn't make any promises 10 years earlier, 12 years earlier now, and that I was going to change and do all this, because I never talk about it. I be about it.
Yeah.
And the living proof. You ask me, hey, when I'm there, brother, Flaco asked or whatever I could do to help, then I'll do that, and I don't need to be in the limelight, right? I know a lot of people have said, I should be starting a channel, or they were asking Flaco if I had a channel, but, I don't know. I don't want to never say never, but, at the time, all you guys are covering everything from every angle, and I'm in full support of that. I supported so many things that disregarded me later on in life, whereas with this, it's a good part of being, it's a good part of my history to be part of this legacy, and going to the church was so many good people that were there, the House of Rest. If you haven't gone, check that out if you're in the Modesto area on Sundays. And
and we stream them live, so they can, wherever you're at, you can watch.
And I do that too. When I was in, when I was in the islands, I do that, and I would, try to distract the pastor there, and hey, I see you, Joe, and he would just keep going with his things, and it's just from one door closes and another one opens. Her losing her life wasn't in vain. I've had a lot of time to reflect and think. And I know that I have to stay spiritually fit, and also I have to be alive for the people that do love me that are still here. If I put myself in the corner and dwell on things I had no power over, then I'm really doing myself, and God a disservice, So I take everything, as it comes, and if I'm able to do something, I'll do it. If I'm not, if I don't understand something, then I'll reach out until I do understand it, until I'm available to do it. And I just, no, it's not the most exciting and war story ridden, but I'm past all that.
Yeah.
And those are stories that I tell off camera with those people that can understand and relate. There's a time and a place there is for everything, but this is mainly about, reflection and the aftermath of what happened and the trials and tribulations that I went to bring me to this point where we're doing this video right here for your channel. So I appreciate that, and I'm glad that we're not homies. We're friends. This is a genuine friendship. We clicked right away, and stay tuned, everybody. There's a whole lot more to come.
Yeah, there is. I mean, I think ultimately for me, I want this to be a video to letting men know we have to advocate for our women. We all came from a woman, first of all. Like Tupac said, we all came from a woman, man. Whether you respect that woman or don't, you love her, she was a bad mother, the fact is you wouldn't be here without a woman, and we have to advocate for them. We have to, the Bible says that they're a weaker vessel. Not that they're weak, but they are the weaker vessel. They are the weaker gender. And God has given us the responsibility to protect them, to protect our women, and that has been ingrained from the very beginning, and that's the very thing, even in the beginning, Adam and Eve. When Eve was tempted by the serpent, where was Adam? Where was Adam? Because the responsibility was on him, and a lot of times people want to blame Eve for causing Adam to eat that. And I'm like, no, the blame is on Adam because he was called to protect. He was called to be a covering for her, and there's so many things, man, that are going on now, human trafficking, a lot of things that are happening, and it's happening in your city. And I want to say this to anybody. If you know of things that are going on and you are not saying something, where does that put you? These are humans. These are women. They have dreams. They have, they're people. You know what I mean? Yeah. They're like, oh man, she's this or she's that. Who cares? No, man, that's somebody's daughter. And if at the very least, that is somebody the Lord loves. Because a lot of these girls are out there because mom or dad don't care.
Yeah.
But God cares, so we just want to be an advocate, you know what I mean? And I want to say this at the very end, okay? And somebody might disagree with me. But I'm a true believer that the wrath of God still exists. Now, what happened to this person that went paralyzed? He might even be watching. I don't know. I will say this, the Lord loves you, but if you losing your abilities meant this not happening to somebody else, that's the wrath of God. That God used you as an instrument to stop this person from causing this to more people. Does God still love that person? Hey, maybe this happening will bring that person to God, but you know what? The wrath of God still came upon where you are not going to be, you're not going to do this to anybody else. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I never thought of it that way, but hearing that in that context,
and I'm a true believer that the wrath of God still exists. A monster had to be stopped, and my wife, being a victim of this, I guarantee will agree. I guarantee will agree. And my wife is the most loving person. Will she want that person to get saved? Yeah. God's like, listen, my wrath is going to come and stop you from doing what you're doing, but I'm not going to take your life because the Bible says that God does not find joy in anybody not being saved. He doesn't find a joy in that, but he will stop you to keep you from doing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I guess that's pretty much it. One last thing, guys, is I have a book that I'm about to make into a movie. Can I share that part?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. I wrote a book back in 1999 with my first drug case. I got caught, I think, like a Snicker bar of meth. It was under my seat, and I ended up getting a year and I paid to get a house arrest with an ankle bracelet, and I had to report. I think once a week or once a month, I had to report in. But I had an ankle bracelet, stuck at home. A year back then was like 8 months or something like that. I don't remember county time.
Right.
I did it at home. I was bored out of my mind. I was in the height of my career, my music career, and so I wrote a book called "Mr. My Confusion." It was a fictional story I made up. I put a couple real life incidences in there, but nevertheless, it was a made up story. I just wanted to put out a good novel. I'm a reader. I'm an avid reader, and that was written. What is that? 21, 22, 22 years ago, I wrote that book, roughly. We're about to make it into a full feature film. And when I talked to Toko, I said, you know what? Would you ever mind being in a movie? I don't know what your reaction was or what you thought, but I said, because there's a character in there, not a huge part, it's not a starring role, but there's a role where Joaquin goes into county jail and he meets an OG. Joaquin is only 18, so I'm not saying you're old, but to an 18-year-old, we're old.
We're old, yeah.
You know, and he schools him, guys. I don't know if you've read the book. If you haven't, you can get it as a paperback, as an ebook, and even as an audible, where I'm the one narrating and reading it. But even if you've read the book and know the story, trust me, you're gonna want to see this movie. But you accepted to do the role, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome, guys. I'm thinking in the timeline of probably filming it toward the end of this year. And as far as releasing it, I'm not sure. It all depends on how I'm going to release it, what platform I'm going to release it. It will be available, worldwide. I'll tell you that. Not in theaters, but there's so many different platforms. There's Netflix, Amazon Prime, there's Vimeo. There's a bunch of ways. Now, that's why I stopped doing movies, because there was no platform. But everything's changed now. Now we can do a production and just have it reach the world, So really excited about that. Really excited about you taking on that role. That's going to be fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
There's a little taste of it, guys. I got all these lights in here, and it's like a full production. Looks like Oprah, the Oprah show right now.
30 people you can't see behind. It's full production.
Yeah. So, I was giving them a taste of it. I was like, this is what it's like, man. I showed them the camera, the 4K camera we have for the filming. That's going to be for that movie. Not this camera. This is my phone. But anyways, guys, there's going to be more to come from Toko. He's been doing different interviews, different lives. I'm sure this ain't the last time you're on this. I know this was the longest, but I think they'll appreciate it and watch it because the story's so captivating, man. And I just appreciate you just sharing your heart,
I appreciate the opportunity anytime.
Any shout outs, anything you want to say to anybody? Or
just thanks for tuning in, and listening to the story. Hopefully somebody can get something out of this, and I know a lot of people say, but I really mean that, if it affects one person, for them to think about what they're doing or how they're living, man, then it was worth it, and God bless everybody, man, and stay tuned. More things to come. Thank you.
All right. Bye. All right, I'll cut it right there.